Lynne, could you say a few words, please?
I can.
Okay.
I can say my name is Polster.
And I'm Lynne Jacobs.
Okay. After our conversation in August, the one we did for the GANS conference in Australia, you and I both seemed to have such a good time. I thought this would be a good excuse for us to get together and talk some more.
Instead of quitting while we're ahead.
Right, right. Which I know from our Australian talk is a piece that you hold dear to your heart.
Yeah.
You know, that was interesting because you said it was the first time you had written more personally about yourself. And it occurred to me, it may be one of the first times in the sea of the development of psychotherapy that therapists were beginning to write more personally about themselves.
Yeah, that was in the 1960s, I think, maybe earlier. I'm not sure. But the idea that your personhood could be a factor in your work was the theme of the book.
There are two things I think that stand out to me in that I so loved, and one was how much you made a clear statement. Look, it's the therapist's responsibility to be available for the best quality of contacting that's possible. That's not the patient's responsibility, that's the therapist's responsibility. And for me, that was such a nice counterpoint to holding the patient responsible for everything. And then the other was how well you wrote about how resistance is essentially a forgotten ally. Those would be my words. But the idea that resistance is a friend, we developed it to preserve something, and then we've lost the capacity to use it by choice.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, the concept of creative resistance takes that into account, and Pearl's Heffernan and Goodman described that.
Right. Okay, and this is sort of your point. You attend to the process without necessarily calling the patient's attention to the process. You know, where you're not reducing their content to being mere details, you know.
But what I experience in your work in the intersubjective mode is this incredible respect for whatever is going on in the other person, which very often has content.
Right, right.
And it evokes content.
Right.
It may evoke content beyond what we're familiar with in Gestalt therapy, I'm not sure. But.
Right. I think where we're coming from, your argument, if you will, was with those who treated content as mere epiphenomenal. My argument was with people who ignored process altogether.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that's why we're coming, you know, each wanting to emphasize the other side more.
We're differing with great agreement.
Right. Right.
One of the things I was introduced to that I've learned more about subsequently is the idea that which you are afraid of in anticipation is different from when you're in it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's established a certain faith in me,
Right.
not altogether dependable, that when I get to a point like dying or any other tragic kind of thing, and certainly it happened in relation to Miriam and my daughter both dying, that which would seem to be in anticipation so devastating that it was hard to imagine survival, turns out to be a part of living.
And it changes how you look at the backward looking. I mean, this is, by the way, one of the things I like so much about intersubjectivity theory. They've redefined transference as a process. What they call transference is merely this: how a patient organizes their experience of the therapeutic relationship. Some of that organizing in our language would come through fixed gestalten. But rather than looking on it as actually you take what happened in the past and you move it over and you put it on the present, they're much more in this process oriented, that it's about the familiarity.
Yeah.
We have standard ways in which we organize experience. So of course we're going to do that in the therapeutic relationship
What
as
we
well.
learn from the life we've lived. I would ask him, what is it that makes you think I'm angry?
Right,
What am I doing to you?
right. And
How would you like me to be?
right.
Is it hurting you that I'm angry?
Yeah, and so none of those questions presume that the patient is either right or wrong in their
Oh,
assessment.
well, it's not relevant whether they're right,
Okay.
but they're wrong.
You can't say that. All
You
can
can't
say
live a
is,
life if you don't have, it would be a strange life if you didn't know anything about right or wrong.
but you can't know.
I'm
All
not
you
the
can know
final
is that
authority,
you
I'm the therapist.
right. So you can't.
Hired because of my skill.
Well, I'm not hiring you if you're going to assume. We're going to watch a tape that you, Irv, did at the Evolution of Therapy conference
Right.
and talk about it together and see
Yeah.
what happens if we do. But we thought we might just watch a tape to see what occurs to either of us to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Letitia, yes. Hi, Letitia. Where should we start?
Well, I don't know.
Well, then we're on the same plane, aren't we? It's nice to start out equal.
Yeah, that feels pretty good.
Yeah. It's not going to stay equal very long because it's going to have to be your thing.
Okay.
And he would scold you or what?
He would make fun of me. I mean, he would make jokes about it. He would call
Like-
me like the poor little bunny. I'm always crying about these things. And
Poor little bunny?
it kind of sounds like it might be cute, but it wasn't cute. It was
It's really derogatory?
derogatory. And
I'm picking up this more as a teaching point for anybody who might watch the film, but what was cool to me about that little interaction is you said cute little bunny with a little bit of lilt and play in your voice, and she was able to let you know without a big confrontation, "Tain't funny, guy."
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say about your identity now?
My identity?
Yeah, how would you identify yourself?
I'm Irv.
E, not C.
I feel like my identity is very elusive because I'm so many things,
Yeah.
and I don't know which is more true than others. I'm totally incompetent and very competent. I'm loosey-goosey and tight. Depends on when you catch me and what it's about.
But this does bring me to sort of this recognition, like when I said last book as opposed to latest book, of where you are in your life. And I don't know how to ask a question, but I know I want to know, if you're willing to talk about it, how you're thinking about death. I mean, I hear some of it as you're thinking more about a loss of energy, perhaps, which hasn't happened yet.